Hi, Garvin, CEO of Australian Vintage. Thank you very much for your time and
My
joining
pleasure.
me.
Good to be here.
And I just want to say a few things first. So it's 2 years and 9 years prior that CEO of dairy manufacturer Parmalat.
Yes.
And I remember distinctly the first time I met you. You came into the office.
Yes.
And you looked, let me put it mildly, you looked very tired. You'd seen all your operations. And I think you were a little bit sick. It was pre-COVID days.
Yeah. I think it was, I just got back from China, actually.
And what struck me immediately is just your passion, and you had a very clear idea where you wanted to take your brands and this company, and it came through immediately. And I just want to say a few highlights, because Australian Vintage Limited is not that well known in the investment community, but this is a consumer business, and you've grown your key brands double digits the last financial year.
Yeah.
It's the highest profit of this company in 10 years. Your cash generation has been absolutely superb. You paid a special dividend, 10% reduction in shares, so capital management is important to you. Other things, number one supplier to the Australian retail industry, ranked supply chain manager of the year, and so forth and so forth. Absolutely outstanding base. And I think before this you were talking about, you're very conscious of the steps you need to take. But can I ask you this? Why Australian Vintage? Why did you join? Why did you want the job back in late 2019?
I'd had various roles in my career with multinationals, and from PepsiCo through to Parmalat, my most recent one, and Arnott's and Campbell's and so on, and Lion Nathan. Great roles, great companies, but I took a year off and just did a reset of what was it I really wanted to do, and it came down to this, could I work with a chairman that I really admired and got along with in Richard Davis, who I met, and we had a great connection. Second thing is, I wanted to run an Australian listed company. And thirdly, a company where I thought I could make a difference and create value and have an opportunity to build off something which I thought had a good base, but hadn't really had a chance to reach its potential. And Australian Vintage kind of fitted those criteria. And I really, the thing that motivates me the most is, can we make a difference? And developing great leaders within that company engages me, and I was lucky enough, I suppose, to get that role, which I'm glad I did, and it's turning out that way.
And about the people, and I think your chair actually said it at the AGM, the people are the key assets of this business. Can you talk about that a little bit more? And of course, in this time, it's even more of a directed question than normal, because here we are working from home again. So it's been a hell of a difficult time to build culture. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the culture and the people at Australian Vintage.
The people are a great mix of industry experts and functional technical know-how. Previously, my observation was they'd worked in an environment which perhaps was a little more command and control, and weren't able to show their potential. The job of a CEO is to build leaders and build great teams. And in the end, businesses will succeed if you can create discretionary effort. And people can buy stainless steel, people can have processes, but if you can combine really good know-how with discretionary effort and a passion and an engagement, then you have, I think, a competitive advantage and a more sustainable long-term set of results to follow, because people will find ways of innovating, of creating excitement, and they're engaged. And the simplest measure of that is, do people go home and tell their partners about what's happening in your business in a positive way? it's not silver bullet stuff, and it's not rocket science. It's human decency and engagement. And we've had a series of crises, if you like, which has actually created a stronger team and a more engaged workforce than before, because we're in it together. And great leadership is for me, great combinations and teams, not necessarily about an individual. So my job is to create that climate, and that's what gives me satisfaction. But underpinning that is also behaviors. So, businesses that just focus on results aren't necessarily as successful long term, and it's a proven fact, as those who focus on results times behavior equals better performance in business. And we measure all this stuff now. We've moved to a balanced scorecard. So safety and engagement are two of our priority measures. And we've had some success in improving not only our engagement, but our safety is getting close to world class. Yeah. And if you don't have that balance, then obstacles become crisis. And if you have that balance, then you rally around it and you actually become more engaged as you succeed in dealing with obstacles, whether it be bushfires, floods, pandemics, mice plagues. We've had the biblical couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm talking Australian Vintage Limited to some people listening to this, they would go quickly going on to Google. So let's talk about the brand, and then people will understand. Yeah. And you're so good here. So I'm just going to let you do your thing.
Okay. My thing. All right, I'll try.
You've done a terrific job. You knew exactly where to put these brands and where. Yeah. So yes, I love the story.
Well, you're right about AVL. Some people might say, well, AVL, Australian Vintage, is it a car collector's company, or what is it? What is Australian Vintage? Is it old furniture? No, first of all, Australian Vintage Limited is a wine company which has some serious assets, some great winemaking capability, and some brands, a portfolio of brands. So, I break it into two discussions really, and that is, what does the corporate brand stand for, or the ASX brand, and what are our individual brands stand for from a consumer basis? And as you know, I have a very strong approach to consumer need state, which is, how does a consumer look at a brand and why do they choose that brand and what's the usage occasion and so on. We used to be a company that had more of a wine make push mentality. So we make the wine, we'll push it into you and you'll take it, won't you?
Yeah.
And I'm simplifying a little bit here. We've shifted to a consumer pull strategy, which is the consumer demands the product, we supply it as it moves out, and it's a more balanced approach. And that helps us engage much better with retailers, because we're bringing a consumer viewpoint to the table, not just, hey, we have more wine, please stock it for us, because they've got 100 of those. So it's a constant, and it's the same globally. So it's very important with your portfolio that no brand competes against itself in a consumer space. So if you take our McGuigan brand, for example, so we've got 4 key pillar brands at the moment, hopefully more to come in the future.
Yeah.
And perhaps we'll talk about that separately.
Yeah.
McGuigan, which everyone understands, we have Tempest 2, we have a brand called Nepenthe, and Barossa Valley Wine Company. Now, what's really cool about those brands, or I like about those brands, you take McGuigan, it's an everyday value-driven brand, and value is the key word. For a fair price point, you get a consistently good wine that you will most likely consume in your own time for your own relaxation. So 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll have a glass of red, I'm doing some work, I'm very happy to pour a McGuigan because it's great value for me, and I would drink it and consume it regularly. I'm going to a dinner party Friday night. I think I'll take a Barossa Valley Wine Company because I want to be more aspirational and I want to impress some people, and so it goes, right? So very, very different positioning. Asia, Barossa Valley Wine Company. We have a brand with the word Barossa in it, and we haven't traditionally grown it in Asia at high value. Whereas we may have wanted to push containers of McGuigan in there, which didn't fit the consumer. Right? So it's quite logical. So here's this great brand called Barossa Valley Wine Company that we are only just beginning to really look at its high value in an export sense. and that's very exciting for the future. If I look at Nepenthe is an Adelaide Hills brand known in South Australia, one of the best vineyards in South Australia, amazing views. We sit across the road from, say, Shaw Smith, which you know. Nepenthe is a highly awarded brand that we've kept a secret successfully. So you know, from a consumer needs state, that might be getting together with some friends, 4 of your closest friends. Let's have some Adelaide Hills Chardonnay or some Sauv Blanc or Pinot. Wow, what a great discovery this wine is at $20 to $30 a bottle.
Yeah.
Right. We are embarking on a national rollout and education of that, and the signature of that brand is now Let It Flow. Okay, let it flow. And post-COVID, that really makes a lot of sense. So then I moved to Tempest 2. And Tempest 2, what consumer research has told us is it's a celebratory brand. The consumer doesn't care where its provenance is. That's quite rare. Champagne's like that. Okay, you know it's champagne, it's French, it's whatever. But the usage occasion of that is celebration, good times. Let's enjoy ourselves. Again, post-COVID. So we are finding that consumers, and we have a signature, if you like, for Tempest 2, go beyond tradition. So it's not about this kind of swirling of the wine and sniffing of the nose and which side of the hill it's on. It's about, hey, great to see you. Let's celebrate. Let's have a great time. Those of you who may have watched a program like Sex in the City, those girls are Tempest 2 consumer targets, if you like. Have a good time, have fun. So each of those brands plays in a different consumer need state, and we've got to play to that very hard in our marketing. And Australia and the UK are very similar, which is our 2 core markets. So what we did as a business was we retreated back to those 2 core markets, if you like. Let's be the best we can be. And our results last year were really based on those 2 markets. And now we're resetting the table in Asia, Canada, where we're starting to see some much better growth. Because we'd minimized our exposures to China, we didn't get caught with the China shutdown. Good luck or good management. It suited us. So the growth opportunities for us in the future aren't just with those brands in our core markets. It's also our other markets where we've reset the table, if you like. And then we get to possible acquisition.
So where are the gaps?
It's a long answer.
High-end red, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about our portfolio, we have to go step by step. We're a mid-sized company of a few hundred million. We're not a 10 billion revenue company. So in perspective, we're looking for value in the high-end aspirational target need state, if you like, that I talked about before. So yes, Barossa Reds, Margaret River, Tasmania, cool climate, Pinot Regional Victoria. There's a number of logical places where we could see some brand acquisitions fitting our goal. We particularly would like to be strong in the high-end, high-margin export opportunity wines. But that doesn't mean cornering Shiraz. Because internationally, Shiraz isn't necessarily the preferred choice of North Americans or other Asia or whatever. It's a very China-driven value kind of proposition. So we're not just looking at Barossa, Pinots and Chardis, and so it goes. You've then got the complexity globally of different supply and demand issues in the wine industry. So New Zealand, for example, is really struggling with Sauv Blanc production in the last year. So suddenly there's a real demand for that outside of New Zealand, which resets the market. Pinot Gris and Pinot Grigio is extremely popular. Cab Sauv in North America, and so it goes. And Pinot Noirs everywhere. So you've got to also understand the consumer and what they're wanting in the different geographies of the world as you look at those acquisitions. But what we don't need is to buy another $10 value wine of high bulk. We've got one of those. It's called McGuigan. Okay, so you don't need a second one of those. But we would like to think we will play higher in the $30 plus space moving forward with any acquisitions.
So linked to this is innovation. And when you talk about innovation in Australia and US and some Western worlds, it's always like tech, and innovation. Well, actually, there's a lot of innovation in other companies too, including Australian Vintage, and the big one is the alcohol-free, but I'm sure you're bubbling away with a couple of things. But talk about the alcohol-free because it's been amazing for you.
Yeah, it has.
And innovation generally.
Yeah, and innovation can take many forms. Product innovation, go-to-market innovation, distribution innovation, online. There's a number of things. But coming into product one, as per your question, McGuigan Zero has been phenomenal for us. We would expect to do in the order of 600,000 cases over the next 12 months from zero a couple of years ago. No pun intended. But what that's done is it's also in Australia given us access to retail supermarkets that we didn't have before. Whereas in the UK, you're in the grocery store no matter what with alcohol. In the UK, they're two separate venues. Sorry, in Australia, they're two separate venues. Yeah. So what Xero has also done is given us access to a whole lot more distribution that we never had before, 2,000 stores. So that's been phenomenal. The second thing is we've invested in Australian technology know-how with our spinning cones, which is really how it's produced. You make wine, high-speed revolutions, alcohol spins off. Mm-hmm. We've put a lot of work into making that a decent product as opposed to some juice that is meant to taste like wine, which is kind of the history. So we make for others, and we've just invested in doubling the capacity. And in the UK, we've become number one with this product in no alc. And with Heineken in the UK, we've elevated to a more industry advisory role with Heineken with those retailers because of that innovation.
It's phenomenal.
So that's little old AVL in a way. We talked about, the brand of AVL was the other brand I didn't come back to. How do we position that in a more credible way?
Yes.
To and then that helps us with our advantage scores and supplier of the year, and because we're bringing that credibility of consumer need instead of we just make a lot of product. Can you please take it? And I'm simplifying, but just directionally that changes the scope of the discussion. So moving forward, I think there's a big opportunity in mid-strength, in the 6-7% alcohol. Beer has seen that phenomenon. Wine is a bit more tricky because people take it a lot more seriously in terms of the discerning nature of it. But every percent of alcohol you can put in, the mouthfeel and texture reflects what you would consider normal wine.
Yeah. Okay.
So at zero alcohol, it's a very challenging thing to get it to be tasting like wine, which we've probably done the best in the industry at. But at 6 or 7%, you can't tell the difference.
So what will that be? A Tempus 2 or something maybe?
Possibly. We have a brand called Lighten Up right now that we're trialing. Okay. We've also partnered with a company in New Zealand called Invino, and we're making their product worldwide in mid-strength, and they represent Sarah Jessica Parker. So we've got the distribution rights in Australia for Sarah Jessica Parker and that product.
Yeah.
And we're making for her worldwide and Graham Norton in the UK. So we're also, innovation for us is also partnering with the right companies who can help jump shift our business without us having to put a whole lot of capital in. Mm-hmm. And ROCE is a really key measure for us moving forward. And the company sat at 3 to 3.5% for a long time return on that. And we're now in the 7s.
Yeah.
And the goal is to, over the next couple of years, we'll aim for around 10.
Yeah.
On a consistent.
Great for one company is excellent.
Yeah, and be consistent. Leverage those assets and everything else. But innovation, we're also spinning off a lot of swimming pools of alcohol at the moment because we're selling such a big amount now of McGuigan Zero. At a good margin, I may say. The margin on that is better than our mainstream McGuigan. So we took a decision not to go in at a discount on the innovation. Yeah, that's tricky. But the retailer makes a better margin. We make a better margin. Everyone wins.
Yeah.
So you can't be afraid to share with the retailer because otherwise you're not on the shelf. Exactly. So we worked hard at that, and we're spinning off a lot of alcohol. Well, that presents a lot of innovation ideas for us. So right now we are looking at what are the products in the spirit space could we make and leverage our assets, which are already sunk costs.
Yes.
We've got a lot of alcohol, which we currently sell as more of a commodity. what if we were to value add that and leverage those assets and get into some new product ranges? So that's what we're reviewing right now.
Like your gin. You're
Like
bringing out a gin.
So in our Tempest 2 cellar door right now, if you walk in there, you will see Tempest 2 gin coming soon.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so that's just a hint of some of the stuff that we're working on right now.
So let me move on to you as a manufacturer. We spoke about the capex because this company had enormous amounts of capex for several years. So on the cost curve,
yeah,
you must be right down there. And there's also this debate about should you own your vineyards, should you lease them, security of supply, and then of course we should bring up this whites versus reds, and of course with the reds at the moment because of China.
Yeah.
So where are you on that? Where would you say it's hard? Because it's in some respects, especially in Europe, it's like a cottage industry, right? So where would you see yourself cost curve wise? And
well, it's really interesting. We have one of the best processing facilities in the world in Mildura in Baronga, and we do about 100,000 tons a year, which is not like a little niche cellar door company who might do 1,000 tons a year. So we do 100,000 tons a year. We have the capability easily to do 150 if we, for a minimal amount of investment on some storage, we could crank that up to 150.
Yeah.
But the point is to fill what we have, and we're getting pretty close to that, but also fill it with higher value products. So and maybe I'll start with this. In the last 2 years, it's not so much that we grew volume, we improved our mix of branded volume from 51% throughput to 71% throughput. So our mix of branded core business going through that asset is 71% of the volume now. It used to be 50% a few years ago. So it's not just grow the volume for the sake of it, because that can make you vulnerable to losing contracts in the future and a whole lot of things. So So we do want to add more volume, but it's got to be at a good margin. And then we've reduced our capital spend down to more R&M, or in the case of spinning cones, which gave us an advantage, we invested in those because it gave us a less than 2-year payback.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean we won't invest, but we're shrewder. The past was a lot of capital invested. My job is to drive a pull system at the front commercially that leverages that investment.
Yeah.
So, I was actually, arrived and had some very good assets to play with, and credit to the past for that. But the time of investing tens of millions continually in those wine-making assets is got to slow down. So we're more at the R&M level now.
Yeah.
And we're putting more money, if you think about it, into our marketing play. So instead of having strong capex, we've got a higher mix of our P&L, putting cash into brands. And we have a balance sheet, if you think of that triangle of capex, balance sheet, P&L. And we have a balance sheet that we're trying to leverage with, let's have enough debt that we're not lazy, which is why we did the buyback.
Yeah.
But also let's have some space that if we see a great acquisition, we could go for it and fund it in debt, equity, whatever. But try to have that combination working in a really balanced way so that we can continue to drive that higher brand mix of business and therefore contribution by sweating those assets.
Yeah. So let me end like this. And I've actually asked you this question before.
Okay. I'm scared.
3 to 5. Like you can say whichever you like. It could be a financial measure. Talk about it in a different way. It doesn't really matter. But what is success for this business? 3 to 5. What will make you happy?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, that it has a sense of reaching its potential, and that can mean many things. What will make me happy is that AVL is seen as, or AVG as an ASX term, will have been seen as a progressive, growth-oriented, successful business with a balanced approach, good growth, and really driving a consistent return to shareholders that is very opportunistic and quick and agile and becomes a very well-balanced, diverse business. So, for example, We need to operate successfully in multi-geographies, so that if you have one geography that, like China, it doesn't mean you're causing a huge shock in your earnings. We need to have multi-portfolio delivery. So we can't just be the McGuigan Black Label company, perhaps as it was in the past, so that if you have a deletion or something happen, you know, you're protected. And we need to be the thought leaders and set the example in innovation to drive growth. Underpinning that, are known as a balanced scorecard business, safe, progressive, fair, engaging, and a place where people really want to come and work. And that's really important for me. The last thing I'll mention that we're getting really serious about now is sustainability. So, you know, you have to be asleep in this day and age not to see that it's mainstream.
Yes.
It's not a side project, right?
Yeah.
And sustainability now is quite exciting because, well, you know, there's a sense of urgency, obviously, but it used to be more about a green environment thing, and you're either in or you're out. It's not like that now, especially what COVID's accelerated is it's what's your corporate social responsibility and how do you give back in the communities that you play in. For example, we're looking at giving support and money to alcohol rehabilitation, alcoholism in communities and that kind of thing, because it's a space we play in.
Yeah.
So you need to be responsible in that space, especially in the communities where we employ a lot of people. So we're working on that. What's our footprint that we leave behind in terms of carbon and earth and all of that kind of stuff? And how do we play a role to improve that? And what about health and well-being, mental health, people, etc.? So what we know is, as a research fact now, is if you're not getting that balance right in your communities where you play, you're leaving something behind. And to be a good corporate citizen, you must play this way. Now, what comes out of that is benefit, because you can reduce cost, you can reduce waste, and you can drive product innovation that people want. I'll give you an example. We're working on a product right now called Off the Grid, which is totally made from renewable sources of energy, water waste reduction, lightweight bottles, and super low carbon footprint. And money from every sale goes to a thing called Solar Buddy, which gives underprivileged kids in remote communities of the world solar lights to read at night. Okay, so how do we connect that through the value chain and be known as a progressive contributing organization? And guess what? If we do it right, our profits will improve. So it's this balance moving forward that I really want our company to be known for.
Great. Look, I've been watching what you've done this past 2 years and just so incredibly impressed. Really happy shareholders, and I think a lot of people are going to watch this and also take notice. I think it's absolutely fabulous, and I'm really happy to be on this journey with you. And thank you very much.
It's great. It's great, and it's, you know, it's enjoyable, and I appreciate talking this through with you. You know, and we've still got some ups and downs and some things to do. But it's a complex world, the wine world. But in the end, step by step, and we're improving.
Yeah, you said you started with the granny's jumper and you want to end off with a sports jacket.
That's it. And we've got one arm in the sports jacket. So, you know, we're on our way. We've got a lot to do, and you know, we need to be humble about that. And there's peaks and troughs. I mean, right now, for example, if you look at the UK, the logistics of the UK and the costs are crazy. You know, shipping costs are up around the world, and we'll have a few hiccups with that in our first half results that we talked about when we in November. But they're one-off, non-recurring, and we're finding solutions. But long term, we're on track with our strategic plan. And you know, wine's one of those games where you're also in agriculture. So you asked me before about owning the vineyards and leasing and all that kind of stuff. That balance and that mix is quite important. We think we've got the balance right, but a lot of detail for another day, perhaps.
Yes. Great. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
lovely
you.
day.
Great to speak.
You take care.